The silver ship hung in space like a needle against the black. Inside, Kethavar pressed his six-fingered hand against the observation window and watched the blue planet spin below. His large, dark eyes reflected the swirling white clouds that covered the world the locals called Earth. Another routine survey, he muttered to his assistant, HFY. Look at them down there, fighting each other constantly. Such a waste of energy. HFY's tentacles curled nervously around his datapad. I don't know, Kethavar. Something feels different about this species. The way they move, the way they adapt to their environment. It's almost like they're too comfortable with change. Kethavar laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. You worry too much, old friend. They can barely leave their own atmosphere. Most of their energy goes into conflicts over resources and territory. Classic primitive behavior, the UE. Survey had been going on for 3 standard cycles. From their hidden position beyond the planet's moon, they had watched the humans go about their daily lives. The creatures were fascinating in their simplicity. They worked, they played, they cared for their young and even other species. They created art and music for no apparent survival advantage. They even kept smaller animals as companions, feeding and protecting creatures that served no practical purpose. Look at this, Kethavar said, pointing to his screen. The image showed a human female sitting in what appeared to be a healing facility. She wore a white coat and was gently examining a small furry creature. They spend enormous amounts of time and resources caring for animals that contribute nothing to their society. Completely illogical. But HFY noticed something else. See how calm the animal is? Even the most aggressive creatures seem to trust them. That's unusual. It's inefficient, Kethavar replied. Any logical species would focus their medical knowledge on their own kind first. On Earth, Lisa Park adjusted her diving gear and prepared to descend into the Pacific Ocean. She was a marine biologist, though she would have said she was just someone who loved the ocean and its creatures. For the past week, her instruments had been picking up strange energy readings from the deep water. The patterns didn't match anything in her textbooks. Just another equipment malfunction, she told her research partner, Carl. But we should check it out anyway. You never know what we might find. Carl shook his head. You always say that. Remember when you thought those weird sonar readings were just broken equipment? Turned out to be a whole new species of whale. Lisa smiled. Exactly. Science is about being curious, not about being right all the time. 3,000 miles away, Jake Stone sat in his office at NASA, staring at gravitational data that made no sense. The numbers showed tiny fluctuations in Earth's gravitational field, but the patterns were too regular to be natural. They repeated every few hours like clockwork. Hey, Rachel, he called to his colleague. Take a look at this. Either our sensors are broken, or something is watching us from space. Rachel rolled her eyes. Jake, you know how many times people have thought they found evidence of aliens? It's always equipment problems or solar interference. Maybe, Jake said, but he kept staring at the data. But what if it's not? Back on the survey ship, Kethavar was preparing his final report. He had observed enough to make his recommendations to the Galactic Council. His long fingers moved quickly over the holographic keyboard as he typed. Species designation: human. Planet, Sol 3, locally known as Earth. Technology level, primitive. Space travel, limited to local planetary system. Threat assessment, minimal. Current behavior, internal conflicts over resources, limited cooperation between tribal groups, excessive emotional attachment to non-productive activities. He paused and looked at HFY. What threat level should I assign? HFY's tentacles twisted again. I keep thinking about their unpredictability. They do things that don't make logical sense. They risk their lives to save strangers. They create art instead of weapons. They explore dangerous places just because they're curious. Exactly, Kethavar said. Irrational behavior. They waste energy on activities that don't improve their survival chances. Any species that inefficient will never pose a threat to galactic civilization. But what if their irrationality is actually a strength? HFY asked quietly. Kethavar ignored the question and continued typing. Recommendation: maintain observation distance. Species shows no signs of rapid technological advancement. Emotional instability and resource conflicts will likely prevent unified planetary development. Classify as harmless. Suggest quarantine protocol until species achieves technological and social maturity. Estimated time frame: 500 to 1000 standard. Cycles. On Earth, Lisa surfaced from her dive with excitement in her eyes. The energy readings were stronger near the ocean floor, but more importantly, she had discovered something incredible. The readings seemed to be affecting marine life in positive ways. Fish were swimming in more organized patterns and coral reefs were showing unusual growth rates. "Carl, you're not going to believe this," she said, pulling herself onto the research boat. "Whatever is causing these energy readings, it's like the ocean is responding to it. The whole ecosystem is more balanced, more active." Carl helped her out of her diving gear. "So it's not equipment failure?" "Definitely not. This is something new, something that's actually helping the environment." Lisa looked up at the sky, wondering if the source might be somewhere up there among the stars. Meanwhile, Jake had spent the entire day analyzing the gravitational data. The more he studied it, the more convinced he became that something was observing Earth from a distance. The readings suggested a large object maintaining a stable position beyond the moon, moving in patterns that matched no known celestial body. "Rachel, I'm serious about this," he said. "The math doesn't lie, something is out there." Rachel finally looked at his data seriously. After a few minutes, her expression changed. "This is either the most sophisticated equipment malfunction in history, or we're being watched. That's what I've been trying to tell you." As the day ended on Earth, HFY transmitted his report to the Galactic Council. The message traveled across space at faster-than-light speeds, carrying his assessment that humanity posed no threat to galactic civilization. "Another routine survey completed," he told HFY. "These humans will probably destroy themselves in resource wars long before they develop interstellar travel. Standard primitive species behavior." But HFY remained troubled. He had noticed something in the data that HFY had missed. The humans didn't just adapt to their environment, they changed it. And they did it not through force or destruction, but through understanding and cooperation. Even their conflicts seemed to drive innovation rather than simple destruction. "I hope you're right," HFY said quietly, but he wasn't convinced. Something about the humans felt different from every other species they had surveyed. They were unpredictable in ways that could be either wonderful or terrifying. The survey ship began its journey back to Galactic Council headquarters, leaving Earth classified as harmless. Neither HFY nor HFY realized that their three-cycle observation had already begun to change things on the planet below. Lisa's energy readings and Jake's gravitational data were the first signs that Earth and its inhabitants were about to become something the galaxy had never seen before. 3 months after HFY's report reached the Galactic Council, Ambassador Quintel stood in the command center of his diplomatic vessel. His tall, thin frame cast long shadows under the blue lights as he reviewed the first contact protocols. "One final time. Standard procedure," he told his crew. "We announce our presence, wait for their government representatives, establish communication, and begin cultural exchange. Simple and clean." His pilot, Nemra, adjusted the ship's position above Earth's atmosphere. "The humans have primitive detection systems. Should we disable them to avoid panic?" "No need," Quintel replied. "A little panic is normal. It helps establish our technological superiority and makes negotiations smoother." The ship decloaked directly above Washington, D.C. at exactly noon, just as Quintel had planned. Within minutes, every news station on Earth was broadcasting images of the silver vessel hanging motionless in the sky. But the human response was nothing like what Quintel expected. Instead of mass panic, people came out of buildings to look up and wave. Children pointed excitedly while their parents took pictures. News reporters weren't screaming about invasion. They were asking questions like, "Do you think they need help?" And "Should we invite them for dinner?" Captain Amy Bell, of the newly formed Earth Defense Force, received the call while she was having lunch. Instead of scrambling fighters or preparing weapons, She grabbed a basket of fruit from the base cafeteria and headed to the landing zone that Military Command had quickly set up. First contact protocol, she told her team. Be polite, be helpful, and for heaven's sake smile. They probably traveled a long way to get here. When Quintel's shuttle landed in the designated area, Amy was waiting with a small welcome committee. She held her fruit basket and wore her dress uniform, but her posture was relaxed and friendly rather than military rigid. Quintel emerged from his shuttle expecting to see soldiers with weapons pointed at him. Instead, he found a human female, approaching with what appeared to be food. "Welcome to Earth," Amy said, offering the basket. "I'm Captain Amy Bell. We brought you some local fruit in case you're hungry from your trip. Are any of your crew injured or in need of medical attention?" Quintel's translator worked perfectly, but the words still didn't make sense to him. "You're offering us food?" "Of course. It's the polite thing to do when someone visits. We also have coffee, tea, or water if you prefer. Oh, and I prepared a presentation about human culture if you're interested." The ambassador stared at the basket of colorful earth fruits. In his 3 centuries of diplomatic service, no species had ever greeted first contact with snacks. "This is most unusual," he said carefully. "We are representatives of the Galactic Council. We have come to evaluate your species for potential inclusion in galactic civilization." Amy's face lit up. "That's wonderful. We've been hoping to meet our neighbors eventually. Dr. Wright will be so excited. He's our head scientist, and he's been working on some theories about faster-than-light travel based on some energy readings we detected." Before Quintel could respond, a human male came running across the landing area. Dr. Ben Wright was carrying a tablet and looked absolutely thrilled. "Captain Bell, is this really happening?" Ben asked, then turned to Quintel. "Sir, I'm Dr. Wright. I have so many questions. How does your propulsion system work? Do you use some kind of space-time manipulation? I've been working on some calculations. That might interest you." Quintel felt the conversation slipping away from standard diplomatic protocols. "Dr. Wright, we appreciate your curiosity, but first contact procedures require that we establish formal governmental contact." "Oh, absolutely," Ben said. "But while we're waiting for the politicians, could you look at this?" He held up his tablet. "I think there might be a more efficient way to configure your engine output based on the energy signature we detected." Despite himself, Quintel looked at the tablet. The equations displayed there made his breathing stop. The human had somehow deduced not only how their FTL drive worked, but had identified a theoretical improvement that their own engineers had missed. "How did you figure this out?" Quintel asked. Ben shrugged. "I noticed the energy patterns and worked backward from there. It's just basic physics, really. Oh, and I think there might be a safety issue with your current design. See this calculation here? You might want to add some additional shielding." While the ambassador tried to process how a primitive human had identified a design flaw in advanced galactic technology, Amy was organizing the welcome committee. "We should probably set up some tables and chairs," she said to her aide, "and maybe a tent in case it rains. Our guests might not be used to Earth weather." "Captain," her aide whispered, "shouldn't we be more cautious? They're aliens." Amy looked confused. "So? They came here peacefully. They're being polite, and they're probably tired from traveling. The least we can do is make them comfortable." Back on the diplomatic ship, Nemra was experiencing his own confusion. The ship's communication system was being flooded with incoming messages, but they weren't threats or demands. They were welcomes. Thousands of humans were somehow sending greetings through their primitive internet system. The messages ranged from simple hello and welcome to Earth to elaborate cultural explanations complete with pictures of human families, pets, and food. One message particularly puzzled him. It was from a group called the International Friendship Committee and included detailed information about human customs, a playlist of Earth music to help you understand our culture, and an invitation to something called a potluck dinner. "Sir," Nemra called to Quintel through the communicator, "the humans have hacked our communication system." "Red alert," Quintel replied immediately. "Raise shields and prepare for cyber warfare." "That's the thing, sir. They haven't attacked anything. They're just sending us pictures of cats and asking if we want to be friends on their social media platforms." Quintel rubbed his temples. What? I have 17,000 friend requests, sir. And someone named Lisa Park wants to know if we'd like to see her research on marine biology. She thinks we might find Earth's ocean life interesting. Meanwhile, Dr. Wright had pulled out a portable coffee maker and was brewing a fresh pot for everyone. I hope you don't mind caffeine, he told Quintel. It's a mild stimulant. Most humans are addicted to it, but in a friendly way. You're offering me drugs? Quintel asked, alarmed. Coffee? Amy corrected. It's perfectly safe. We drink it every morning. Ben makes the best coffee on the base. Ben handed Quintel a steaming cup. Try it. If you don't like it, I can make tea instead. Or we have juice, soda, water, or milk. Whatever works for your biology. Quintel accepted the cup cautiously. The liquid was dark and smelled pleasant, but he was more concerned about the casual way the humans were treating first contact with an alien species. Are you not concerned that we might be hostile? He asked. Amy and Ben exchanged looks. Are you hostile? Amy asked. Well, no, but then why would we be concerned? Ben said. You seem nice enough. Plus, you have incredibly advanced technology and chose to introduce yourselves politely instead of just taking what you wanted. That suggests good intentions. But we could have weapons, Quintel protested. So do we, Amy said cheerfully. But why would either of us want to use them? Seems like a waste when we could be learning from each other instead. As the day progressed, more humans arrived at the landing site. Instead of soldiers or government officials, they brought scientists, teachers, artists, and children. Someone had set up a small festival atmosphere with food vendors and musicians. A little girl named Emma approached Quintel with a drawing she had made of his ship. I drew this for you, she said shyly. Welcome to our planet. Quintel accepted, the drawing with trembling hands. In all his years of diplomatic service, no one had ever given him art before. It's beautiful, he said, and meant it. By evening, Quintel found himself sitting at a picnic table, drinking his fourth cup of coffee, and trying to explain galactic politics to a group of humans who kept asking if there was anything they could do to help solve conflicts between various alien species. You want to help civilizations you've never met? He asked. Why not? Ben replied. If we're all neighbors now, we should try to get along. That's just common sense. Quintel realized that nothing about first contact with humans had gone according to protocol, but somehow that didn't seem like a bad thing. 6 weeks after first contact, engineer Kate Mills was having the time of her life in her garage workshop. Scattered across her workbench were pieces of alien gravity manipulation technology that Ambassador Quintel had shared as part of the cultural exchange program. This is incredible, she muttered, adjusting her safety glasses. They use gravitational field manipulation for everything from propulsion to cargo handling. But look at this energy efficiency rating. She held up a small device that hummed quietly in her hands. According to the alien technical manuals, it was designed to create localized gravity fields for moving heavy objects. But Kate saw something else entirely. If I adjust the field frequency and add a pressure regulator, she said to herself, I could create the perfect coffee brewing system. 3 hours later, Kate had successfully combined alien gravity technology with her espresso machine. The device used controlled gravitational fields to compress water through coffee grounds at precisely the right pressure and temperature. The result was the best cup of coffee she had ever tasted. What she didn't realize was that her modification had accidentally created a miniature black hole generator that existed for exactly 0.3 seconds during each brewing cycle. The device was technically violating several laws of physics while making perfect espresso. When Quintel visited her workshop the next day, he found Kate calmly sipping coffee while her machine bent space-time in small, controlled bursts. Kate, he said carefully, what have you done to our gravity manipulator? Oh, I made it better, she replied, offering him a cup. Want some coffee? This is the best batch I've ever made. The gravitational compression creates this amazing flavor profile. Quintel stared at the device, which was casually generating forces that his people use to power interstellar engines. You're using reality manipulation technology to make beverages? Well, yeah, isn't that what it's for? Kate looked confused. I mean, what else would you use controlled gravity for? Transportation, construction, planetary engineering, Quintel said weakly. Oh, that's smart too. Hey, want me to show you how to make the modifications? I wrote up some instructions. Pretty sure I can scale it up for bigger projects. Meanwhile, across town, Dr. Sam Foster was working in his greenhouse with samples of alien plant life that the visitors had brought as gifts. The Galactic Council had provided seeds from 12 different worlds, expecting the humans to study them carefully over several years. Sam had planted them all in the same week. Fascinating, he said to his assistant Maria. Look how the Altarian moss is interacting with our Earth tomatoes. They shouldn't be able to coexist, but they're actually helping each other grow. Maria examined the impossible garden that Sam had created. Plants from different worlds were not only surviving together, but thriving in combinations that violated basic biological principles. Sam, how is this possible? These species evolved on completely different planets with different atmospheric compositions. Sam shrugged. Life finds a way. I just gave them good soil, plenty of water, and let them figure it out. The Centauri vines seem to like wrapping around our bean plants, and the crystalline flowers from Kepler 442b actually improve the soil chemistry for everything else. What Sam didn't mention was that his greenhouse had become a small-dimensional anomaly. The combination of alien and Earth plants had created an ecosystem that existed partially in normal space and partially in what his instruments cheerfully labeled as somewhere else entirely. When alien botanist Vextai came to check, on the plant samples he found Sam harvesting vegetables that glowed softly and tasted like they had been grown in paradise. This is impossible, Vextai said, examining a tomato that was somehow both red and transparent. These plants cannot survive in the same environment. But they are surviving, Sam pointed out reasonably. They're actually doing great. Want to try this cucumber? It tastes like regular cucumber but with hints of starlight. I think it's because of the Altarian moss. Vextai bit into the cucumber and immediately understood why his people's scientists had failed to create successful hybrid ecosystems. They had been trying to force compatibility through genetic manipulation and controlled environments. The humans had simply planted everything together and asked the plants to be friends. It worked. Across the country, pilot Jenny Clark was in her family's cornfield trying to understand the alien aircraft that Quintel had allowed her to examine. Jenny came from 5 generations of farmers, but she had always loved flying. When the aliens arrived, she saw an opportunity to combine both passions. The propulsion system is really elegant, she told her father, Jim, as they walked between rows of corn. But I think I can modify it for agricultural use. Jenny, that's a spaceship, Jim said patiently. It's meant for traveling between stars. Right, but the same technology that moves it through space could move it through our atmosphere while doing crop dusting or harvesting. Watch this. Jenny had spent 2 weeks modifying the small alien scout craft. Instead of weapon systems, she had installed seed dispensers and fertilizer tanks. Instead of long-range sensors designed for navigation between planets, she had configured them to monitor soil conditions and crop health. When she activated the modified ship, it lifted smoothly into the air and began precisely planting and fertilizing the north field, at a speed that would have taken the family tractor 3 days to accomplish. It's also applying the exact right amount of water and nutrients based on real-time soil analysis, Jenny explained as they watched the ship work. I figured if it can navigate through asteroid fields, it can certainly avoid damaging crops. What Jenny hadn't realized was that her modifications had accidentally created the first interdimensional farming equipment. The ship was somehow planting seeds in 3 different dimensional phases simultaneously, creating crops that existed in multiple realities at once. Jim watched his cornfield become slightly translucent and shimmer with colors that didn't have names. Jenny, is our corn supposed to look like that? I don't know, Jenny admitted, but look how fast it's growing. The corn was indeed growing at an impossible rate, reaching full height in minutes rather than months. More importantly, it was growing in patterns that seemed to spell out hello when viewed from above. By the end of their 2nd month on Earth, The alien diplomatic team was sending increasingly frantic reports back to the Galactic Council. The humans have weaponized coffee preparation, Quintel wrote in his daily summary. They have created hybrid ecosystems that exist in multiple dimensions. They have turned our fastest scout ship into farming equipment that operates outside normal spacetime. But the reports got stranger. They refuse to believe any of this is unusual, he continued. When we express concern about their casual manipulation of reality, they offer to teach us their methods. When we warn them about safety protocols, they invite us to family barbecues. Yesterday, a human child asked me if our people have pets, and when I explained that we do not keep animals for companionship, she spent 3 hours explaining why this was a serious problem that needed to be fixed immediately. She has now appointed herself as our cultural advisor for pet integration, and is sending me pictures of Earth animals that she believes would make our people happier. The final line of his report summarized the growing situation. Request: immediate backup. Not for military support, but for psychological counseling. The humans are aggressively helping us whether we want them to or not, and it's working. Our crew morale has never been higher, our equipment has never functioned better, and our understanding of the universe has expanded in ways that our scientists are calling disturbingly wonderful. I fear we may have made a terrible mistake in our initial assessment. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called at 3 a.m, Galactic Standard Time. Council Chamber Alpha was filled with representatives from 47 different species, all looking tired and confused. High Chancellor Mordain called the meeting to order with his ceremonial staff, but his usual calm demeanor was nowhere to be seen. Fellow council members, he began, we have a situation. The species we classified as harmless 3 months ago has begun to spread across local space. The reports we're receiving are unprecedented. Representative Klaxon from the Centauri Federation stood up, his crystalline body reflecting the chamber lights nervously. High Chancellor, my people have been contacted by humans offering to help with our energy crisis. They claim they can solve our power shortages using something they call really good solar panels and maybe some windmills. That doesn't sound threatening, commented Zarakel from the Vegan Collective. That's what we thought, Klaxon replied, until they arrived with their equipment. Their solar panels somehow collect energy from stars that aren't even in our solar system. We're now producing more power than our entire civilization has ever used, and we have no idea how their technology works. Admiral Vexmore of the Galactic Defense Force activated his hologram display. The situation is worse than energy distribution. Look at this report from Sector 7. The display showed a barren moon that had been lifeless for millions of years. The second image showed the same moon covered in green vegetation and what appeared to be small cities. This transformation happened in 3 months, Vexmore continued. A human terraforming team led by someone named Tony Ross arrived with a single ship and asked if anyone was using the moon. When we said no, they asked if they could fix it up a bit. Council member Kethar leaned forward. Define fix it up. They created an atmosphere, introduced a water cycle, planted forests, and established agricultural zones. The moon now has a sustainable ecosystem and produces enough food to feed 3 star systems. They're calling it New Garden and have invited everyone in the sector to come live there for free. Free? Several council members asked at once. Completely free. They say they have more space than they need and would enjoy the company. They've also opened what they call a community center, where they teach anyone who's interested how to terraform planets using basic earth moving and some creative gardening techniques. High Chancellor Mordain rubbed his temples. There's more. Dr. Yilseth, please present your findings. Dr. Yilseth, the Council's chief xenopsychologist, activated her own display. We have reports from 17 different sectors about humans solving problems that have plagued galactic civilization for centuries. The crystalline beings of Altair 7 had been dormant for 3,000 years because they could not find a compatible energy source. A human named Dr. Luna Price visited them last week. What happened? Asked Zarakel. She played them earth music, specifically something called classical symphonies. The crystalline beings not only woke up, but achieved a level of consciousness they had never experienced before. They are now composing their own music and have asked Dr. Price to help them establish cultural exchange programs with other species. The chamber filled with murmurs of disbelief. There's more, Dr. Yilseth continued. The machine intelligence of Kepler 438b had been hostile to organic life for over 500 years. It viewed all biological species as inefficient and dangerous. A human delegation visited them 2 weeks ago. Please tell me they didn't try to negotiate with a hostile AI. Admiral Vexmore said. They didn't negotiate. They asked if the AI needed help with child care. The chamber fell silent. Child care? High Chancellor Mordain asked weakly. The humans noticed that the machine intelligence was actually trying to preserve and protect smaller AI programs that it had created. Instead of seeing a hostile force, they saw a parent struggling to raise children alone. They offered to help establish educational programs and recreational activities for the young AIs. And the machine intelligence accepted? It's now running the most successful daycare center in the galaxy. The young AIs are thriving, and the parent AI has started asking questions about organic family structures. It wants to learn how biological species raise their children so it can be a better parent. Council member Thexani from the Outer Rim spoke up. My people have a similar report. We've been at war with the Zelkonian Empire for 200 years over mining rights to the Proxima system. Last month, both of our fleets were preparing for another battle when a human ship appeared. Military intervention? Admiral Vexmore asked hopefully. They invited both fleets to a baking competition. The silence in the chamber was deafening. What now? High Chancellor Mordain asked. A baking competition. The humans said that fighting over rocks in space was silly when there were plenty of asteroids for everyone. And maybe we could settle our differences over cake instead. They provided ingredients and judging criteria. Please tell me your military commanders refused this ridiculous suggestion. Thexani's expression was pained. Both fleets participated enthusiastically. The Zelkonian apple cake won first place, but our chocolate cookies got honorable mention. We're now sharing mining rights and have established a joint cooking program between our cultures. The war is officially over. High Chancellor Mordain stood up and began pacing. Let me understand this correctly. In 3 months, humans have solved our energy crisis, terraformed dead worlds, awakened ancient civilizations, reformed hostile AIs, and ended a 200-year war with baked goods? That's not even the worst part, Dr. Yilseth said quietly. We just received a report from the Andromeda observation post. A 12-year-old human named Alex Turner submitted what he calls a science fair project to our research division. What kind of project could a human child possibly create that concerns the Galactic Council? Dr. Yilseth activated her display one final time. The image showed a simple device that looked like it had been built from spare parts and colored markers. He calls it a communicator thingy. According to his report, he got the idea from watching cartoons. The device enables faster-than-light communication across unlimited distances with zero energy cost and perfect signal clarity. That's impossible, Admiral Vexmore said. Our best scientists have been working on instantaneous galactic communication for thousands of years. The child's footnotes mention that he originally built it to talk to his grandmother who lives on the other side of Earth, but then realized it might work for space stuff too. He's asking if we want him to build a bigger version so everyone in the galaxy can stay in touch more easily. High Chancellor Mordain sat down heavily in his chair. How is a 12-year-old human child casually solving problems that our greatest minds consider theoretically impossible? According to his teacher's note, Alex is considered an average student who spends most of his time drawing spaceships and reading comic books. The chamber erupted in panicked conversations. Species representatives were talking over each other, voices rising in fear and confusion. Order! High Chancellor Mordain shouted, banging his staff. We need to make a decision. Clearly, our initial assessment of humanity was incorrect. Incorrect? Admiral Vexmore stood up. High Chancellor, they're not just scientifically advanced. They're aggressively helpful. They see every problem as something that needs to be fixed, every conflict as something that needs to be resolved, and every species as potential friends who just haven't been properly introduced yet. That doesn't sound terrible, Zarakel said hesitantly. It's the most terrifying thing in the galaxy, Admiral Vexmore replied. They don't conquer civilizations. They adopt them. They don't exploit resources. They share them. They don't establish dominance. They make friends. And it's working. High Chancellor Mordain looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. I'm calling for an emergency reclassification vote. All in favor of changing Earth's status from harmless to immediate threat level? Every hand, tentacle, and appendage in the chamber rose simultaneously. The motion is unanimous. Earth's classification will be changed immediately. But as the council members filed out of the chamber, each of them was secretly wondering the same thing. What do you do when the most dangerous species in the galaxy just wants to help? The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so full. Representatives from every known species in the galaxy had gathered for what many were calling the most important classification ceremony in galactic history. The massive, crystal dome overhead reflected the lights of 1,000 different worlds, but the mood in the hall was far from celebratory. High Chancellor Mordain stood at the central podium, holding a datapad that contained Earth's new official classification. His hand shook slightly as he prepared to read the document that had taken the Council's finest minds 3 weeks to write. In the front row of the assembly, Human Ambassador Carol Stone sat calmly in her chair, wearing a simple blue dress and a friendly smile. She had no idea that she was about to witness her species being reclassified as the most terrifying force in galactic civilization. Fellow beings of the galaxy, High Chancellor Mordain began, his voice echoing through the massive hall. We gather today to officially reclassify the species known as humans, native to the planet Earth and the Sol system. Carol waved politely to the assembly. Several alien dignitaries flinched. 3 months ago, we classified humans as harmless based on their primitive technology and apparent focus on internal conflicts. Today, we must correct that assessment based on overwhelming evidence of their true nature. High Chancellor Mordain activated the massive display screen behind him. Images flashed across it. The terraformed moon of Newgarden, the awakened crystalline beings of Altair 7, the reformed AI daycare center, and dozens of other impossible human achievements. In the span of 90 standard days, humans have fundamentally altered the balance of power in 17 sectors, solved problems that have existed for millennia, and forced us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about technological development and social progress. Ambassador Carol raised her hand politely. Excuse me, High Chancellor, but I think there might be some confusion. We haven't been trying to alter anything. We've just been trying to help. A ripple of terrified murmurs spread through the assembly. That, High Chancellor Mordain said slowly, is exactly the problem. He looked down at his datapad and began reading the official classification. Species designation, human. Planet of origin, Sol 3. Locally designated Earth. Technology level, unknowable and apparently unlimited. Social structure, chaotic good with aggressive tendencies toward universal friendship. Threat assessment, maximum level. Threat type, existential reality modification through applied kindness and weaponized problem solving. Carol looked confused. I'm sorry, did you say weaponized kindness? Current behavior patterns, the Chancellor continued, include but are not limited to solving energy crises through the application of common sense, terraforming dead worlds because someone should probably fix those, establishing diplomatic relations with hostile species by offering them baked goods and teaching children to build devices that violate the fundamental laws of physics as recreational activities. The assembly was dead silent, except for the sound of several species, breathing apparatus working overtime. Psychological profile. Humans display an alarming inability to recognize when something is impossible, dangerous, or none of their business. They respond to every problem with optimism, creativity, and an inexplicable confidence that everything can be fixed with enough effort and friendship. Carol stood up. High Chancellor, with respect, those sound like good things. Dr. Yilseth will now present the psychological analysis, the Chancellor announced, ignoring Carol's comment. Dr. Yilseth approached the podium with the careful movements of someone handling dangerous materials. Fellow beings, after extensive study, we have concluded that humans suffer from a species-wide psychological condition we have termed compulsive helpfulness disorder. The symptoms include an inability to see problems without immediately trying to solve them, a tendency to treat strangers as potential friends, and a complete disregard for established limitations of science, politics, and social order. Most disturbing is their apparent immunity to despair. When faced with impossible challenges, humans do not accept defeat. They instead become what they call creative and find solutions that should not exist. Carol raised her hand again. Dr. Yilseth, that just sounds like being optimistic and trying your best. Exactly, Dr. Yilseth replied with obvious terror. You see problems as puzzles to be solved rather than permanent fixtures of existence. You see conflicts as misunderstandings to be resolved rather than natural states of being. You see suffering as something that can be fixed rather than something to be endured. Well, yes, Carol said, looking around the assembly in confusion. Isn't that what everyone does? The sound that rippled through the assembly could best be described as thousands of different species having a collective panic attack. Admiral Vexmore stood up from his seat. Human Ambassador, in the past month alone, your species has established trade routes that make no economic sense but somehow generate prosperity for everyone involved. You have created agricultural systems that feed entire star systems using planets that were previously considered uninhabitable. You have convinced warring species to resolve conflicts through competitive cooking. Yesterday, he continued, his voice rising, we received a report that a human child built a device in her backyard that can generate unlimited clean energy by asking stars nicely to share their power. When our scientists investigated, they discovered that the device works by somehow making friends with solar radiation. Carol nodded enthusiastically. Oh, that must be Emma's project. She's been working on that all summer. She's only 8, but she's really smart. She wants to make sure everyone has enough electricity. The silence that followed was deafening. High Chancellor Mordain cleared his throat and continued reading. Official threat classification. Oh God, oh no, why are they present? Recommended response protocols. Do not engage, do not ignore, do not make eye contact. Do not accept food offerings. Do not allow them to discover your problems. Additional warnings. Humans will attempt to adopt your species whether you want them to or not. They will solve your problems whether you ask them to or not. They will improve your quality of life whether you deserve it or not. Resistance is futile, not because they will conquer you, but because they will genuinely care about your well-being until you surrender to friendship. Carol stood up and applauded. That's wonderful. I accept Earth's new classification on behalf of humanity. We're honored to be recognized as helpful. She reached into her bag and pulled out a large container. I brought cookies for everyone to celebrate. They're chocolate chip, made from my grandmother's recipe. I also brought some sandwiches in case anyone is hungry. The stampede that followed was immediate and chaotic. Representatives from dozens of species tried to exit the assembly hall at once, desperate to escape before Carol could offer them food and accidentally solve all their civilization's problems. But it was too late. As the news of Earth's reclassification spread across the galaxy, so did reports of human activities. Humans were establishing interdimensional restaurants that served impossible foods to species that shouldn't be able to eat together. They were teaching art classes to energy beings and hosting support groups for lonely AIs. They were organizing galaxy-wide festivals and sending birthday cards to species they had never met. High Chancellor Mordain remained in the empty assembly hall, staring at Carol as she carefully arranged cookies on a table she had somehow materialized from nowhere. Would you like a cookie? She asked cheerfully. I made extra. Despite everything he knew about the danger she represented, Mordain found himself walking toward the table. The cookies smelled wonderful, and Carol's smile was genuinely warm. They're not going to stop, are they? He asked quietly. Stop what? Carol replied, offering him a cookie. Being helpful, being kind, solving problems and making friends. Carol looked genuinely confused. Why would we stop doing that? As Mordain, bit into the best cookie he had ever tasted, he realized the terrible truth. The galaxy's most dangerous species wasn't dangerous because they wanted to conquer or destroy. They were dangerous because they cared too much, tried too hard, and refused to accept that anything was impossible. And somehow, that was the most terrifying force the universe had ever known. The final entry in Earth's classification file was added by an unknown council member. They're not malicious, that's what makes them so terrifying, they just care aggressively.